about that. That's okay, I suppose. Oh, whatever. It's we get on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and recording, especially good. So that should sound. Let's turn this on. Right, it's not my fault. All right, so this should be good times. Oh. Let's get this rolling. Hope you guys are all having a good evening tonight. We're getting back into it. Double dog addiction. We're learning about addiction issues, but today we're talking a little bit about addiction, and we're going to drop some Christian verses in there tonight. So if you are feeling the Easter love, we got a little bit of hangover because we're going to figure out, why do people only act Christian like in order to get their reward afterwards, right? But that's not the purpose of Christianity at all. But we'll talk a little bit that later, especially since we live in a country that claims to be so Christian, but we go out and about and we see so much action that doesn't really look very Christian like. And even though we just had the Christian holiday Easter, um, you'd think that people would be a little more open to not being dicks all the time. Let's see here. Let's grab a little drink of water. Let's get into it. Hey, everybody. My name's Nick. Late Night Nick, to be exact. This is Double Dog Addiction, the place where we talk about addiction issues, veteran issues, life issues, anything that people want to talk about that's getting in the way of their sobriety. This is the place that we're going to talk about it. So, we're going to get into the first segment here. If you love it, why don't you live it? Oh, now that's a hard one there, folks. In this segment, we're going to break down a very simple idea that most of us avoid. If something truly matters to you, your life should reflect it. So many times people say something matters to them, but then their actions don't follow exactly what their words say they're trying to follow, right? We're going to learn by looking at the gap between what we say matters and what we actually do every day. Because we can say one thing and then do another, and then we feel bad. We feel awkward. We feel twisted. We feel weird. We feel like something's missing. We feel like maybe we're not doing something right. And that's right, folks. It's because we're not. We're going to examine how this gap forms, how it's going to affect us the three ways. The tenets of Devil Dog Addiction, folks. We talk about being honest, showing up, keep coming back, and have the willingness to change, my friends. But basically, you just got to be honest and you got to keep coming back. We're going to figure out the fact that your body, your mind, and your spirit are what all connects together to keep you feeling good or keep you feeling bad. Because if you feel, everything has an equal and opposite reaction, right? Especially spiritually, physically, and emotionally. And most importantly, how we're going to start closing this gap in real time. Because the goal is not to feel inspired, right? Our goal is not to just be like, oh, I need to get inspired, right? I need to feel like I need a muse to be doing this awesome thing right now, or this awesome thing that's going to be some grand gesture for society that I'll do sometime in the future, that, oh, I'll get around to it, right? But the goal is start to living aligned with what we already know is right. So let's start with a little prayer, folks. God, help us stop separating what we believe from how we live. Give us that clarity to see where we fall short and the strength to take action, not later, not eventually, not sometime down the line, not 30 days from now, not 40 days from now, not a week, not a year, not next year, not the year after that. Today, amen. And the first verse we're going to get into tonight is John 14:15. It's a pretty simple one. It's a very easy one. It's not some, but first people are going to throw around quoting it to be like, oh, God, you need to, blah, 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 you're going to go to hell and burn in hell. If you love me, keep my commandments. If you love me, keep my commandments. It's not that difficult. People say every day. You see people on TV that say they claim to be Christians, especially on the news. They'll be like, oh, Jesus Christ is my personal Lord and Savior. Oh, I have, oh, Christ, I Jesus to thank for all of my things. Oh, I praise the name of Jesus. Oh, praise Mary, praise Joseph, praise Jesus, praise God, praise this, praise that. But then their actions don't fucking match up to what they do or what they say. And what they do and say, they don't match up. If you say you love Jesus, if you say you love the creator of the universe, if you think that the creator of the universe is good and has good things wanting for you, then you got to act like you care about other people. And you got to act like you care about yourself. Because what happens is once you start caring about yourself, you realize, hey, I'm worth more, so that means other people are worth more, and maybe I should treat each other the way I might want to be treated, right? This verse, of course, removes the illusion that belief alone is enough. You can't just believe your way into heaven. You can't believe your way into a better life. You can't believe your way into a life of productivity, a life of doing good things, a life of meaning. This, of course, draws a direct line between what we claim to value and how we behave. There's no separation, my friends. Your actions are the proof of what you believe. Okay? You are what you do after you choose to believe whatever comes in. And if you go out there and you're filtering the things that come inside your brain, if you're saying, oh, I'm not going to listen to that because someone said that's bad, I'm not going to listen to that because I heard that that's supposed to make me feel a certain way without actually being like, "Oh, what is that? Boom, process. What is that? Boom, process. What is that? Boom, process. What is that? Boom, process." And start thinking about some of these things for yourselves instead of just going along with the flow. Don't just go with the flow when other people are telling you what to believe. It means we don't get to hide behind intention anymore, friends. If we say something matters, our recovery, our growth, our purpose, then it has to show up in our daily actions. And yes, this is not popular. It's not a fun thing. It's not something people say, "Oh, man, this is a what an amazing philosophy for life. I'm sure I'm going to have a whole lot of fun doing this." I have to actually say that I mean something, and if it's positive, I actually have to do the work behind it. Ooh, yikes. That is not easy at all, my friends. And I'm not good at it. I'm not specifically good at it. I'm working on it. I'm getting better at it. I'm doing good, but I can do better. This has to show up daily, and it's difficult to do things daily. It's very hard to stay consistent. To be like, oh, I got to come back to this. My goal is once I get off track, I try to get back on track as fast as I can. If you tell a lie, try to tell the truth and fix it as soon as you can. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient, but consistently, of course, enough that it actually shapes our lives. And we keep thinking that life is going to go on forever, that we have an infinite amount of days ahead of us. We don't know when we're going to die. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? So, why do we have to really care about it, right? Wrong. That is incorrect, my friends. Stop You are wrong. Wah, 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 wah. And how does this affect us? Well, it affects us in three parts of our lives. And the first part, my friend, is the body. Your actions have to be your real priorities. At the physical level, your life is built out of what we actually do. You know, you wake up in the morning, you make decisions, and you say make a bunch of million decisions a day, right? Not what we plan to do, not what we talk about, not what we think about, not what we delusionize ourselves into thinking that, oh, maybe one day I'll do this, or, I'm going to do that, or, I'm definitely going to do that, or, I need to do this, I need to do that, I got to do this, I have to do this. Sounds like a crazy ass song for a Broadway play, right? But we have to believe our intentions carry weight. We can't want to do something into existence. We can't mean to do something into existence. We can't hope things into reality. But our body, of course, follows patterns, not promises. If something matters, it has to show up in our schedule, in our habits, in our routines. Routines are not easy to start. Structure is much, much more difficult to do, especially if you have ADHD or if you have any other issues going on in your life that affects scheduling, that affects routine, that affects memory, that affects habits, that affects the ability to do things over and over again. In a lot of cases, when it comes to me, my friends, out of sight is truly out of mind. But figuring out ways to keep these things in your mind so you can continue to do them is the difficult task. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But this alignment in the body part is when your actions match what you say. And when you don't, you feel it. You feel it, my friends. You feel it deep. You feel it in unfinished tasks, in wasted time. Have we anybody out there that has wasted time in our day and age of comfort and addiction to screens? Any wasted time where you sit back and you go, "Oh my God, I can't believe how long I just did this, or how long I just did that, or how long has it been? What day is it? What week is it? Where are we? Who am I? What's going on right now?" Here's the reality, friends. The studies show that over 40% of what we do daily is habit based, not conscious decision making. So if we can get ourselves into positive, good habits, hey, then this is one way that we can make things better without having to consistently and constantly think about, well, I need to be productive and be better at this and be productive and better at that. This means nearly half of our life is running on autopilot, my friends. So make sure that your habits match your goals. Because if they don't, your life will not either. After the body comes the mind. Mentally, the biggest issue is not confusion, right? It's what we call the execution gap. We're trying to turn the idea of that space between knowing what to do and then not doing it. You know what to do, but we don't do it. We figure out a way to turn intention and thought into physical, actual product or thing or life altering actions. Not dramatic pressure, though, but constant low level stress that builds throughout the day. Every time we avoid something, delay something, or choose something easier instead of something better, our brain keeps track of it. So if you're out there and you're thinking to yourself, oh, I need to do a couple good things to boost my creativity, if you don't actively do it for a certain number of days to make it into a nice little habit, you're going to forget about it. And whatever you were focusing on that one day, you'll maybe remember it in a week or two or a week or two later and be like, "Oh shit, I was meaning to be doing that." Well, shit, if you were meaning to maybe be I was meaning to be thinking about trying to do something, well, in that case, my friends, it turns out you ain't doing shit. And that's why, of course, when nothing major is wrong, you can still feel overwhelmed. Can I get a witness? Anybody feel like you're overwhelmed even though you don't have that much going on? Well, my friends, that is because your mind is holding on to all these things that we haven't followed through on, and they've stacked up over the years. Even things that you've maybe have put out of your mind so far that you're like, oh, I don't have to worry about this anymore. My friends, it's in there somewhere and it's dragging down on your psyche, right? Research backs this up. About 20% of adults are chronic procrastinators. You got any procrastinators out there? That's right. Around 20% of adults are chronic procrastinators, meaning they consistently delay important tasks, even when they know it's harmful. And that's the kicker right there, my friends. Yeah, that's right. Tom Glenn says, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble," and I can agree with that because we are procrastinating, my friends, and it's basically mental constipation is emotional, verbal, and spiritual constipation. And these are not just regular procrastinating things. We're pushing off things that are important. We're pushing off things that we know we're supposed to be doing. And this means that consistently delaying these things, they do hurt us. And that, my friends, is not a knowledge problem. You know what I'm saying here? This is an issue that can be fixed, not with hitting the books. This isn't a, oh, I don't know enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't grasp the concept enough to fix this problem. It's a follow-through problem, and I got it. I don't know how many people out there got it too, but following through and finishing tasks is not easy, especially when I'm told I need to be doing a bajillion things at once. And I'm like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that. Ooh, let's do that. Ooh, let's do that. Ooh, shiny pretty object. Ooh, shiny thing. Ooh, me likey. Ooh, me likey. Ah, we all do that shit over whatever we geek out about, right? We all got different things we're into, but when we are geeking out about where the fuck we geeking out about. It's difficult to get us off track. And lots of times these things are not things that are positive. They may not be necessarily negative. They may not be damaging us in such a sense that it's not like shooting dope as a pastime, right? But, you know, doing something too much of anything is always going to be negative, especially because it's going to get in the way of us trying to positively live out our lives. And this follow through problem means that the longer this gap, the execution gap stays open. Remember, we're still talking about the execution gap, trying to get our mind from going from thought to action, from idea to product, from wanting to being, right? And the heavier these things start to feel. And when the mind and the body start to feel things, you know what's next. Oh, that's right, my friends. The spirit. You feel it when you're not living right, my friends. And at the spiritual level, this becomes something deeper than productivity. We're talking more than things. We're talking deeper than money. We're talking, we're going further down than face value. And it becomes a question of consistency. Who are we going to be over time? Right? Who are we going to turn into over time? Do we even want to evolve over time, or do we want to stay exactly how we are in this minute of time forever and ever and ever? Which, my friends, if that is what you're trying to be, you're in for a rude awakening and a sad existence because change is the only constant in the universe. It'd be very wise of you, it behoove you to understand that concept now, accept it, and utilize it to your advantage because you can believe in whatever the fuck you want to believe in, but that doesn't change the truth. Think about that and take it as you will. And here's what matters, friends. Studies show that people who act consistently with their values, people who walk the walk and talk the talk, report up to 30% higher levels of life satisfaction. So Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones ain't the only ones trying to get their satisfaction and purpose compared to those who do not. So why does this happen? Well, it's because consistency builds identity. When you repeatedly do the right things, even teeny tiny, teeny little bitty ones, you start to trust yourself. And when you can trust yourself, you can start trusting other people and you can start not trusting the wrong people. You know what I'm talking about out there, folks? The manipulators, The motherfucking piece of shits, the assholes that pretend to be listening, say they care about one thing, and then completely do the opposite. Well, what else would you be doing right now, friends? We got to bring it back to the moment it all began. Not your plans, not your goals, not what you say you're going to fix later. What are we going to fix tomorrow, right? Friends, you don't live in tomorrow. The only place that your life actually happens is right here and now. You don't act in the future. You don't fix things eventually. You fix things now. Because eventually is always a future phrase. It's a it's a bad thing. Bad eventually. Say bad eventually. Hey there, Donald Michael. Thanks for the hearts. That's super nice. I like it. Hey, Linda Q. Nice. Gotta love the hearts. Gotta love the hearts. Trying to spread some love. That's better than the negativity that people sometimes put out. It's crazy, right? You try to put something positive out into the world, and then so many people will just be like, "You're a fucking piece of shit. Oh, you're an asshole," or oh, they'll find some way to rip on you. But the best part about being an addict in recovery is I've already said all the horrible, horrible things about myself. So no one can really say anything that can get at me now because I know who I am and I know what I mean and I know what I stand for. And I'm open to the idea that maybe how I feel about something today is not exactly how I feel about it tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that I am failing or lacking in my conviction, which a lot of people like to say. They say, oh, wishy-washiness, or "Y- that's not sticking with your guns or sticking with your convictions." Friends, you got to be open to the world around you. And that's about, that should be some good advice. Shit, that advice right there could be a show of its own. But we're gonna get back to it because we could be on a tangent for like 25 years. I gotta bring it back around, zip it back to this, my friends. We live in seconds. We live in our honesty daily, right? And you gotta ask yourself honestly this: what else would you rather be doing? Well, not rather, but what would you be doing right now? You don't have to ask that like right now. I'm talking about sometime during the day or when you're doing things or when you're doing something fucked up. Ask yourself, what am I doing right now? And what would I rather be doing? What should I be doing? What could I be doing? What would I be doing? Don't think in shoulda, woulda, coulda terms, my friends, because those shoulda, woulda, couldas, they don't happen. You have to honestly go after and try things. And you got to actually think them out. You got to plan them. And you got to be daily, consistently about the things that you want better for your life, right? And it's not easy. You go and you hear people talk all the time. Oh, this fucking guy gets up there and he's inspiring all these people to be like, oh, you could do this with your life. You could do this with your life. Oh, all you gotta do is, a stiff upper lip, chap. Just um, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you can do anything you want to. The American dream. Rebel, rebel, rebel. Friends, there's so many people out there that have been oppressed and fucked over for generations, over and over and over and over, that it's a wonder that people can fucking even get out of bed in the morning, you know? And we have people that have things that are just so extravagantly good, great, amazing. Lives where people don't even have to even worry a single second about where food is coming from, shelter's coming from. Fuck, people that can flip and floop and fly around the globe at a hairpin's drop notice. And in order for that to happen, do people do not realize that for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if someone's having it really, 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 really good, a lot of people got to have it really, 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 really bad. Duh. It's not fucking that difficult to understand. And they've labeled it. If someone tries to think about it that way, they go, "Oh, you're a fucking communist or a socialist or whatever fucking keyword of the day that these dumbasses are using." to try to get people to be manipulated over the idea that we should hate each other because if we get angry at each other over our race and our religion and our skin, what we do, where we're from, fucking a lot of shit that we can't control. It's like, dude, why are you not trying to get us to rip on each other over things that we can control? Well, then of course we'd talk about it and we wouldn't get angry anymore. It wouldn't be that much that wouldn't be so difficult to get angry at one another. You know, ah, whatever. We don't want to get into all that shit right now. We're in the midst of a great conversation about stuff. But yeah, I love we're talking about procrastination, friends, because maybe what we're doing right now is we're procrastinating this talk because it's a very hard-hitting talk, close to home. It's not always easy to talk about things when you're trying to grow because quite often what you talk about is the very things that you are trying to overcome yourself. And so often people get on these fucking platforms and they go on about, oh, I've done this, or oh, I've done that, or oh, yada, 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 rebel, 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 me, and totally blow up over the point of what we're actually trying to do in building real community using technology instead of destroying it with technology. So we got to ask ourselves, what would you be doing right now? And would it be, this is the second half of the thing, we got off on a tangent, but whatever, we'll get back to it. That, you know, what would you rather be doing right now? What would you be doing right now? What have you done in situations like this? But right now, we need to ask ourselves, would we be doing the next right thing? And this move, my friends, is the only one that really counts. Because as you're making decisions, they could be little ones, they could be ones that don't have grandiose and crazy implications, and they could be ones that have longer end games or shorter end games, but we still make our decisions right now, in the now, in the now, in the now, and the no, right? And we realize that we're only limited to what we can do in any given moment, right? But we're not powerless friends. A lot of people say, "Oh, I need to give up the power and just surrender." That's not the implications that or the definition of that situation that we're talking about, friends. In this situation, we are talking about the idea that we can take control of certain things. We do have power over certain things. We have tons of power. We just have to realize what we do have power over and what we do not have power over. Right? It'll make your life a lot easier, make your life a lot simpler. Man, we're dropping some hot fucking nuggets tonight, my friends. People might go on a show that talks about the stock market and they drop some hot stock tips. Well, friends, these are some hot stock tips in terms of the stock market of your heart. You want that bad boy to rally. You want a bull market in your heart, my friends. And this is the exact place to get it because in this exact second, you can choose something that moves your life forward, right? You can do that next right thing, even if it's teeny tiny, even if it's uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable, right? But that's where the big change actually happens. Not in big plans, not in grandiose delusions, not in gigantic over the top things, not in emotional outbursts, not in emotional a lot of times I get in like these ups and downs of being an addict in recovery. Even if you haven't used it in a long time, you still have your because you've fucked up the way that your body interprets um Yes, I am a Marine, that is true, yes. '05 to '09, that's right, and the cause of quite a bit of my issues, but not all of them. It only exacerbated quite a few, especially drinking. I mean, come on, the culture of drinking in the in the military, it's still pretty ridiculous to this day, especially overseas, like in Japan and all those good places. But either way, you gotta remember that change doesn't happen in emotional bursts. Where does it happen? When does it happen? Well, it happens in moments like these, my friends. If you're right here, right now, you're in just the place that you're supposed to be. So don't overthink it. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Just do the next right thing. Make that next right decision. Make that next best right thing. Because if you win this moment, friends, you've already started changing your own life. And hey, there you go. There is that rah, rah, get it done, you can do it, boost that self help speakers around the world are known for. If you can get this moment right, you've already started changing your life. And if a changed life to a better life is the goal, then hey, we're doing the right thing right here. Because it's time to move on to segment two. That's right, you survived, you made it. We've done a whole segment. We got five of them, so who the fuck knows how long this one's gonna go. We're gonna keep on going because it needs to get done. It needs to get done right now, but we need to change the camera battery. All right, there we go. Switched it over to the other thing, and we're gonna keep on rocking, my friends. Rocking until the sun comes up. Hopefully not that long, because I got tons of shit to do tomorrow. In segment one, of course, we identified the gap between what we say matters and what we actually do. We're going to try to stay on track, not get off track on side tangents and lollygag stories that go off into the wilderness and nothingness. We're going to talk about this. It's time to go deeper, deeper into what we are talking about right now. Why does this gap keep happening? Why does this thing that we know is bad, is wrong, is horrible, is ruining our lives keep happening? In this segment, we're going to learn to expose this internal resistance that keeps us stuck. It keeps us squished in there, friends. We're going to learn how we avoid, how we justify, how we repeat these patterns. Avoid, justify, rinse, repeat, right? Even when it keeps us stuck. Often, these things, we know better. We know these patterns hurt us. We know these things are bad for us. But not from a judgment standpoint are we going to deal with this. We need to deal with this from an honest standpoint. Because once you understand why you're not following through, once you understand the why behind what we're doing, which we try to do this all the time, right? We try to get into the why for the purpose of what we're trying to do. When people are arguing with you, when people have certain views about certain things, the point a lot of times if you just let people ramble and go on and on and on and just ask them questions about their beliefs, they will trip and trot all over themselves like a bunch of idiots eventually. You know, and people, you just let them keep talking and they'll talk themselves into a rabbit hole, especially if they're full of shit. Because the truth, my friends, is easy because it does not change. It is consistent and it stays the way it is, regardless of whether you believe in it or not. And you can surround yourselves by tons of people that believe the same delusions as you, so you don't feel quite as alone. But y'all still a bunch of deluded motherfuckers, right? So let's get into it. We're not going to talk Bible verse this time. We're talking AA literature, the doctor's opinion. We are unable at certain times to bring into our own consciousness, when sufficient force, the memory of the suffering and humiliation of even a week or a month ago. We're getting into addiction issues here, folks. We're getting into alcohol issues. We're getting into the idea that why the fuck do I mess up today? Why do I mess up last week? Why do I mess up the week before? And then promptly go out and mess up the very next day. Time out one second. Gotta take a little hydration break. It's ridiculous. We forget how bad things really were, my friends, just enough to go back out and repeat them. This explains why knowledge alone, just knowing something, will not change your behavior. Even when we've experienced consequences, we lose the emotional weight of all of the experience over time, making it easier to repeat actions that we know are not good. It means we can't rely on memory or intention or hope to keep us on track, folks. If we don't actively confront our patterns, if we don't actively try to do different, if we don't actively say, hey, I'm going to create a new habit now by overdoing a habit that I did before, like recording over an old tape, right? We will slowly drift back into these bad habits. Has anybody been in unhealthy situations with their parents, the way they talk, the arguments you get into? You move away for a while, then you come back to visit for a holiday maybe, and then after a day or two, you have slipped back into old habits, slipped back into old roles, slipped back into old things that you did not want to be doing and arguing about because in the grand scheme of things, friends, what the fuck does a lot of this matter? Right? The arguing over ridiculous things. But it's time to get into some key terms. Denial, ignoring reality. We ignore what's going on to stay comfortable. So often we just ignore the real things going on in the world just because it makes us feel a little bit comfortable inside. Rationalization, making excuses that sound reasonable. Anybody out there rationalize doing something wrong, doing something bad, doing something you know is hurting you? The avoidance loop, escaping now just to pay later down the line. Friends, regardless of what you do or you think you may be getting away with, you will have to pay for whatever is going on, whatever consequences. Sometimes consequences are good, sometimes they're bad, and sometimes they're really bad. But you got to pay the piper if you hit the piper, if you know what I'm saying. But yeah, we'll get into the first one first, the body. At the physical level, most bad decisions don't feel bad when we make them, right? A lot of times you make a decision and at the time it feels okay. A lot of times it feels easier. A lot of times it feels like you've made things better. Sometimes it made you feel really good right now. Maybe sometimes you feel really, really, really good right now. You're not choosing between right and wrong in the moment. That's why people say, "Oh, you just make a bad decision. Oh, you just don't not trying to do what's right." No, that's not true, my friends. You're choosing between effort and relief. Effort and relief, my friends, and relief, well, it wins much, much more than most of us want to admit. So let's realize if we put something off, right? We avoid it, we distract ourselves just enough not to feel it in the moment. That's where the avoidance loop begins because we've avoided, we feel better temporarily. The problem, well, it stays, but it grows. Now it's heavier. So we have to avoid even more. And it gets heavier and heavier, and we have to avoid more, and it gets heavier, and we avoid more. Sometimes this doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it's a cycle loop that is built over the course of years, decades even. And research shows that about 20% of adults do this, meaning this isn't occasional. It's a repeated pattern that affects major areas of our lives. So it's not that we don't know better, it's that in the moment, we just choose the easier thing. Our mind, my friends, it talks ourselves into it because mentally we don't just avoid. We don't just avoid. We can't just be like, "Oh, I'm not going to ever think about this," right? Yeah, what's up there, Bob? I was, yes, in the Marines. For sure, for sure, for sure. That's of course where rationalization comes in. We talked about that a second ago. We can't just deny something. We have to explain it. We don't have to explain it to other people a lot of times, but we sure as fuck got to explain it to ourselves. And we got to be able to rationalize it to ourselves to be okay with what we've done or else we're going to feel all twisted and yucky, which is why people say over time when you do these bad things, your morals or your character, it twists, it changes, you get turned to something that you're not because you've been compromising your values, compromising your what you know to be good and right and true, whatever the fuck you want to call it. And you've been compromising it for years and years and years and doing things that you didn't know or want or think or hope that you would ever do. But you did them. And a lot of people who have not done them just have not done them yet. So mark those words, friends. If you stay on the path to whatever the fuck you want to call it, negativity, or especially if you're in a drug induced craziness, right? Then you're definitely on a road to nowhere, a road to a a road paved with bad intentions, if that's what you'll call it, right? I'll do it later. I've had a long day. I'll do this some other time. It's not that big of a deal. The problem is, it sounds reasonable. Your brain is designed to reduce comfort. Your brain is there to make you not feel so bad, right? So instead of forcing you into action, your brain, instead of saying, you gotta do this, no, it creates a story that allows you to stay where you are without feeling like you're failing, without feeling like you're wrong, without feeling like you're bad, stupid, dumb, lazy, intolerable. fucking idiotic, right? And studies show that 80% of people engage in those daily avoidance behaviors, even when they know these behaviors are holding them back. That's a lot of fucking people, friends. These are basic behaviors, but they're holding us back from doing good, positive things, things that we thought we might have been doing, things that we want to be doing, but for some reason, we look around and we're not doing them. And now, my friends, it's not just a habit, it's a mindset. And once your thinking starts supporting this behavior, the cycle it gets stronger. And my friends, like I say all the time, I've said it once, I said it twice, I'll say it three times, I'll say it thrice. Your body and mind do something, your spirit will follow. We forget why we wanted this change because this is where the AA reading, well, it cuts pretty deep. We are unable to bring into our consciousness. We're not even able to remember it. We forget, not completely, but enough. Enough to dull the pain, enough to remove the urgency, enough to make the same decision feel acceptable once again, except makes it feel like, hey, I can do this again. I can use one more time. I can put off my recovery and fuck things up one more day because, oh, what's one more day in a long string of days? And when you forget what something costs us, you are much more likely to go back to it. We don't want to remember what cost us. We don't want to remember what the fuck it's cost us. I know people in the program that consistently use or drink and they've lost their family and they feel the guilt about it, and then that's why and that guilt keeps them in in these patterns of drinking and drugs anyway, even though it's the thing that if they stopped, that's what would get them out of this guilt that they're feeling. So it's a vicious cycle, and it applies to addiction, it applies to habits, relationships, to patterns of thinking. Anything that hurts you but now feels distant. You know, you can't really remember something bad. Think of something bad that's happened in your life. Think of something negative that's happened. Think of some shitty situation that you've been in. Maybe it's a DUI, an arrest, a bad relationship, a morning when you wake up and your loved one, maybe it's a boy, girl, whoever the fuck it is, right? He or she's coming over there yelling, you know, remember what you said last night? Remember what you did last night? Maybe they're not there anymore. Maybe all your shit's on the front lawn. Maybe you wake up and you look in the mirror and you've got a black eye. You're all bloody. You know what the fuck happened last night? Where you feel like death and you don't know what the hell is going on. Well, yes, manic. Most definitely. Up, and then sometimes bleh, completely down, down in the dumps. That is can be. Thanks for that one, Louis Martinez. Appreciate that. It applies, of course, to all these things. And then behavioral relapse shows that within the first year, 40 to 60% of people return to these old habits. People want to not do these things, but a very high percentage of people cannot stop or start doing something that they really want to do, or something that's hurting them or not hurting them so much in the change that it's making them better and they're not, you know, they're getting worse instead of getting better, right? Oh, how about this? Probably gray. I would say gray, my friends. Indeed, for sure. Gray. Well, Crayola, not Crayola, but oh shit, like the dollar store brand. Those are definitely the best crayons to eat. Thanks for that guy Ty. I appreciate the love. For sure. And at some point, my friends, we have to stop pretending we don't understand that that's happening, right? We know the pattern. We know the moments where we avoid. We know the excuses we use. We know when we see things that cut us deep, we like to attack them just like that Ty did. It's really actually spectacular. We're just talking about this type of shit when you feel like, oh man, I'm doing something wrong, and you hear it and you realize, oh God, oh man, I need to attack this. I need to hide behind this. I need to be get the best defense is a good offense, right? It's spectacular, my friends. We know we're choosing short-term relief over long-term growth. And the problem isn't that we don't see it. The problem is that we keep allowing it. We see it, we know it, but we don't stop it, my friends. The problem is that we think that by allowing it, it keeps it small. But by repeating it, it builds a pattern. Yes, PTSD is no joke, my friends. No joke at all. Trauma from tons of different things can fuck you up, can and it doesn't have to be combat related. It can be any type of thing related. Situations that humans were not supposed to be in, right? So we need to realize these other things too, that these patterns do not stay contained. When you do something bad in one part of your life or fuck up something in one part of your life, it's only a matter of time before it spills over into the next. And it hurts most everything: your time, your energy, your mindset, your life. And the longer that it goes on, the more normal that it feels. And that, my friends, is the trap. Because once something feels normal, you stop fighting it. You stop fighting it altogether. And yes, instant gratification is a fuck, it's basically what our economy is built on right now. Faster, quicker, instantly, everything, everywhere, all at once. Me, mine. Get it to me now. Like I said earlier, people have a trillion things they need it now, but people have to pay for that type of shit. And people are getting fucked over that don't even deserve to be fucked over. But either way, we'll talk about that on another day. Some point right now is that awareness of these things, awareness of these issues have to turn into action. Not tomorrow, today. Not when you feel ready, but when the moment shows up, right? Friends, we made it through segment two. It's time to move on to segment three, where we learned these things. You know, some you can't really rip on some people that don't realize that they have an issue. There's people out there that are so ignorant and so dull, so dense, so full of themselves, so narcissistically idiotic that they can't even realize when they're being these things that they supposedly don't like, right? It's time to go deeper on this, that we've learned these actions from somebody. Where do these patterns come from? Because most of what we struggle with didn't start today, did it? It didn't even start when we noticed it, right? It happened much before then. It built over time through repetition, environment, expectations, and the systems that we live inside of. In this segment, we're going to learn to trace these patterns back, right? So we can't stop blaming ourselves blindly. We can't stop blaming others blindly. It's time to start understanding what we're actually working against here. From AA, the big book, right? It says self-centered, selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the very root of all our troubles. That's, my friends. It We have to realize that when everything revolves around how we feel in the moment, we lose sight of what really matters. It's time to point out that many of our struggles are not random. A lot of things that we deal with are not random. They come from a pattern of acting based on immediate comfort, perspective, self focus, instead of long term truth or responsibility. I was in during '05 to '09, served in the Far East, Okinawa, the overseas in the Iraq War. I didn't have to go to Afghanistan, thank God, but Iraq. And let's see, '06, '06, '08, and then I was out in '09, October. So, yeah. Uh, we have to realize that our patterns are not just habits, right? They're the way that we see the world. We don't challenge our perspective every now and then. We're going to keep building a life around what feels good right now instead of what is actually right. And these things that are actually right do not uh no, I was in Okinawa, and then the Philippines, and um Australia for a couple weeks. That was fun. South Korea, that was cool. But time to get into some key terms, friends. It's fun going down memory lane, but we got to get into the idea. No, I didn't serve on a ship. I was in the Marine Corps. So, The body, my friends, the body is what we're talking about here. You were built by repetition, my friends, not intention. You're built when you do things, not by when you want to do things. Most of what you do every day was not consciously chosen, right? It's conditioned. We've been conditioned to do these things. Our environment, our routines, what we saw, what we hear, what we experienced growing up, what we've adapted to, and what we repeated until it's become automatic. That's how behavior forms, not through intention, not through wants and hopes and dreams, but through exposure and repetition. And that includes how you handle responsibility, how you handle productivity, how you handle structure, how you handle what you do. If you were surrounded by inconsistency, well, you learn inconsistency. If structure was not modeled, you struggle very greatly to build it. If distraction is always available, it becomes your default. If instant gratification is what you need right now, then it's always going to be what you need. Studies show that between 40 to 50% of daily behavior is habitual, meaning almost half of our life is being run by these patterns we didn't actively choose today. So when you're trying to be productive, but your environment is built for distraction, we'll say it again. When you're trying to be productive, but your environment around you is built to distract you, when a world around you is built to get us to think this and get us to think that, or get us to be distracted by this, you're fighting for more than just yourself. You're fighting for what you've been trained to repeat. You got to fight through all that, my friends. And when our body cannot fight through it, the next part that gets attacked is the mind. And we begin to accept a life that we're used to. You've heard this before, friends. Well, that's just how it was when I grew up. Well, that's just the way it's always been. Oh, it's always been that way. Oh, well, that's just how it is. Fuck that, and fuck anybody who thinks like that. That's so stupid and idiotic and ridiculous that just because you went through some fucking tormented trauma bullshit that the next people after you are supposed to go through it too. Fuck that. You're supposed to make the world better when you are here. It's supposed to be better when you leave it than when you fucking got here. If people can't say that that's what they've done, then I say you haven't lived a good enough life. We get used to these things, friends. The biggest trap is normalization. We get used to being overwhelmed. We get used to putting things off. We get used to living without structure and just calling it life. And once something becomes normal, we stop questioning it, my friends, even if it's not working. This ties directly into our expectations, my friends. A lot of people either expect too much too fast, trying to flip their entire life overnight, right? Oh, they spent years fucking things up, but want to fix their life overnight because they've gotten used to not following through. And in both cases, of course, we end up stuck. Overwhelmed people do not act, they freeze. They get stuck, they don't know what to do. There's research showing when people are presented with too many tasks or directions or decisions, productivity can drop over 30% due to cognitive overload. People that are not like moi, who have ADHD and craziness syndrome and do a bajillion things at once, well, my friends, it affects certain people negatively when you have so many things everywhere all at once. And the world around us is just vying for our attention. It wants you here, it wants us there, it wants us here, it wants us everywhere. Every single minute of the day is wanting from you at every single second. And this is where society plays a role too. We're constantly pulled in these different directions: news, opinions, distractions, expectations, comparisons. Everyone's telling you what matters, what to care about, what to be outraged about, and what to chase. And in all of that noise, you lose focus on your own life, my friends, not because you're weak, but because you're overwhelmed. And like I said earlier, and I'll say it again, I've said it a million times, the body, the spirit start, or the body, mind happen, the spirit will follow. We carry these patterns that are not fully our own. At a deeper level, of course, some of what we are dealing with did not start with us. Say it again, friends. What we're dealing with, it did not start with us. It was inherited, not just habits, but beliefs, beliefs about work, beliefs about success, beliefs about what we deserve, what you don't deserve, what they don't deserve, who they are, what's right, what's wrong, power, authority, the struggle, the never ending struggle between all these things. And that, my friends, is emotional inheritance. And it shows up in ways we don't always recognize. Maybe you were taught to chase things that don't actually fulfill you. Maybe you were told the purpose of life is to make money and gain power and things and influence. Well, you're in for a rude awakening, friends, because that type of stuff causes fucking problems and issues and damage. And people cannot handle it because we know that humans cannot handle having large amounts of power or wealth or things that give them goods or things, because they can't fucking handle it. It goes to their heads and it makes them crazy. Everybody. And there's never been a in the history of the world eventually, and the way that trying to make when people make so much money and have so much power, it negatively affects a shit ton of people. We talked about that and we'll talk about it again, I'm sure. But it shows up in ways that we don't always recognize, right? Maybe we were shown that money equals self worth, or productivity equals value, or that struggle is just a part of life and that nothing ever really changes, right? Some people think that, but now we're living inside these ideas. We're trying to build a life, but using tools that were never meant to help us grow. We're trying to build something, but we were never taught how to build it. We're trying to love something, and we were never taught how to love. We were taught how to hate, or taught how to be angry, taught how to be vicious and vile and rude and deal with our problems with anger and lashing out and by being mean because it's, you know, just brutal, right? Yeah, and just not good humans in general, right? But people they love to say what we believe, but we don't always practice it. That's the practice what we preach problem. We say we care about growth, discipline, and purpose, but our daily lives do not always reflect that. In some cases, my friends, our daily lives don't reflect it at all. And it's not because we're fake, it's because we're operating on old patterns. We're operating on ways of existing that aren't actually going to make us have a good existence. Studies in behavioral psychology show that people are far more likely to repeat familial behaviors, in your family ones, right? Even negative ones, than adopt new positive ones, simply because familiarity feels safer. So even when you know better, you drift back to what you know. Once you see this clearly, friends, things start to shift a little bit. Because it's not just why can't I get it together? It's what have I been repeating without realizing it? And you got to think about yourself. If you want to grow, you have to think about what you're doing. Um, you have to be, what's the word for it? Examinatory in the way that you look at your own life. You have to look at it, you got to zoom out a little bit. And so if you're looking just at this like one little section of your life, you got to zoom out a little bit and see if you're trending up or if you're trending down. Because of course we have to remember that anything that was built, it could be rebuilt, and anything worth building or making is not easy to do. And if you're willing, well, only if you're willing to challenge these things, but not all at once, not perfectly, but intentionally. We say this all the time. You have to do things with intention. You find your purpose, you find your why, and then you make your plan and you fucking do it. Because right now, just like in every other segment, my friends, you're sitting in a moment where something can change. Not everything, just something. So ask yourself, what else would you be doing right now? Would you be staying inside the same patterns you've always followed, or would you be letting the same environment, the same habits, the same expectations keep running your life? Or would you start doing something different? Even if it's teeny bitty teeny tiny, because that's how patterns break, my friends. Remember, in order to start a new pattern, we got to break the old one. Not in theory, not in intention, but in moments where you choose to be different than you used to be. But even when these patterns are clear, why do we defend them? Why do we hold on to them like they're helping us? Well, it's time to get into segment four. Why we defend what's hurting us. At this point, of course, we've identified patterns. We've seen how habits are built, how our minds get overwhelmed, and how we inherit ways of thinking that don't always serve us. But the real question, my friends, is if we can see it, why don't we change it? Great Scott! Why do we defend things that clearly are not working? Why do we double down on habits, systems, and beliefs that are clearly holding us back? Well, give me a second because I gotta readjust the old tick-tockety thing because we've gone an hour, which means I have to reset this camera here and reset that camera there and grab some water to hydrate because we got two segments left. Actually, one second. I need to go grab some more water. Don't run away. I'll be there. Okay. Okay. Let's roll. From Alcoholics Anonymous this time, my friends. We got two segments left. Segment four is right now. Then we got segment five. It's a doozy. It's a good one. It's going to be a great one. Go up there, Comic K. Thank you for being a soldier. Appreciate that. I was in the Marine Corps, so I was a Marine. So, but no, it's all good. Um, all the service members, any branch of service, if you served, good on you. And we're all brothers in arms, brothers and sisters in arms, or the fuck you want to call yourself in arms. We want control, right? We want comfort. We want comfort and control. We want things our way, even when our way is not working. I appreciate that. Very nice of you. This reading, of course, highlights a core issue. We don't just struggle with change, we resist it. The AA reading for this segment. Sorry, I didn't even get the AA reading. It's from the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. So we'll get in that one right. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. We want control. We want to run the show. We want to do things our way, even when what we are doing is not working. You ever see people just be like, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And everything they do just is a fucking train wreck every other second of the day. Well, it means that growth isn't just about learning what's right. It's about confronting parts of ourselves that do not want to let go of things that are familiar. 4 years, '05 to '09 is when I served. And it's time to get into some key terms. Justification, explaining away harmful behavior to avoid change. Yikes. Some of us do not like change at all. They despise it. They do everything in their power to keep things exactly how they are for as long as they can be. And people will justify things in the most ridiculous of ways. You've heard some outlandish justifications in your time, as I'm sure that you've all came up with quite a few, right? Cognitive dissonance. It's the discomfort from holding conflicting beliefs. We can be believing one thing and then doing another, but we have to have a distance, a dissonance. You could use the word dissonance to have some sort of difference or separation between you and the belief and your actions. You need to have some space between the two things because you will feel bad and you'll feel horrible. Ego preservation, protecting your identity over the truth. It's when you rationalize, you justify, you have that cognitive dissonance. And so now you have to preserve that ego. You have to preserve that you have to preserve that fragile little you that's inside you that's like, oh, I'm doing what I can do. I'm going to be who I'm going to be. Man. And just fucking everything up in your life and just acting like the world revolves around you every single minute of the day. And this affects our body because we choose what feels good quite often. We got to start with that physical level, folks, the body, because this is where the contradiction is the most obvious. We know what's good for us. We know how to take care of ourselves. The medical science is out there. We know how to properly take care of ourselves, right? We know what we should be doing. And yet, we don't do it. Not consistently, of course, because the body doesn't care about long term outcomes. It responds to immediate rewards. If we want our body to get better and bigger and stronger and healthier, we have to use our mind and our spirit to do things about it. And we have to control our body by using our mind and our spirit to get things done. And of course, it wants ease, the body wants comfort, it wants relief right now. Your body wants instant gratification. So the separation of your body and your mind, being able to have, okay, my body wants this, but my mind says, no, bad Nick, bad Nick, you no get this right now. And I got the little angel on my shoulder going, Nick, you shouldn't do that right now. Be a good boy. And my devil going, fuck that shit. You need to do that shit right fucking now, motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? Definitely. And when somebody feels good in the moment, even if it's harmful, we justify it. Oh, I deserve this. I've had a long day. I'll fix it tomorrow. I can make it through. And that's how patterns stay alive, friends. 70% of people struggle to maintain consistent health related habits. 70% of people know full well and understand the benefits. That is not a knowledge problem. Once again, we see this issue that it's not a knowledge problem. It's not a, oh, I didn't know better problem. We complain about addiction while funding industries that thrive on it. This is a systemic thing, a societal thing, something that's bigger than we can definitely comprehend on a tiny basis right here and now, right? We talk about helping people while supporting these systems that punish them. Instead, we say we want better outcomes, but avoid the uncomfortable steps required to get there because fixing things is hard and maintaining the current system, even if it's broken, is easier. It doesn't cost it costs a lot more, but it's easier in terms of social effort and needing to compromise and work together on things for a better future for anybody that doesn't have a bajillion dollars. The mind, we protect our beliefs more than the truth. Quite often, friends, mentally, this is where things get deep, deep, deep because we don't just justify actions. We justify beliefs, and that's a little bit harder to do and a lot more damaging. We build identities around what we think is right. We build identities around what other people think is right. And once something becomes part of our identity, it becomes very difficult to question it, which is why we see it so damaging when people are so into politics that their very identity is surrounded by this outside entity that they truly don't have any control over. And that is where things get fucking real dangerous, especially when people turn religion instead of spirituality and, discipleship, or, studying something, or trying to work on something, as opposed to interpreting a book that's really fucking old and saying, well, this is what I'm supposed to go out and like hurt people or murder people or do this or do that or stop people from living their lives, or, forcing people to try to think or believe what I believe. And if they don't, then I'm going to violently hurt them. Come on, get the fuck out of here. That's not what humans were intended to do. That's not right. That's not okay. That's not anything in the realm of thinking for yourself and having beliefs. That's fucking nuts, right? But let's get back to what we're talking about. In the basic sense, of the idea of something becoming of our identity and having difficult questioning it is where the cognitive dissonance comes in. When reality doesn't match what we believe, we don't always adjust our belief. We adjust the interpretation of reality. We take we take the old adage, uh to try to see it from another perspective and twist that so fucking ridiculously toward our justification of reality, that we've now changed the uh, definition of the universe. We bend things, basically. We ignore contradictions. We cherry pick information to believe what we want to believe in certain scenarios. We surround ourselves with people who agree with us. We surround ourselves by online communities that agree with us. We listen to things that reinforce our delusion, right? Because it feels safer. Studies show that people are up to 2 to 3 times more likely to accept information that confirms their existing beliefs, even when presented with evidence to the contrary, right? So it's not just what we don't know better. Sometimes we actively avoid knowing better. Sometimes we actively try to not know better. We actively avoid the truth. We walk down with fucking blinders on. We shove our head in the sand. We plug our ears and cover our eyes and hold our hands over our mouths in order to hear, see, and speak no fucking logic, reality, or truth. And this, my friends, is where things hit hard. We argue about the wrong things. We argue and we fight about issues that are so far over the line of things that are decent, right? So like here's the line of where things are good, and here's the things we're arguing about, and we're like, dude, we need to be arguing about this, because anything that happens after here is nonsense. It don't mean shit because this issue is not fixed. It's like a timeline of shitness, and we've gone off into this shit timeline, and everything in this timeline is now shit until we go back and fix the issue that gets us back onto the good timeline. Right? Nowadays, we have all these fucking stupid ass Marvel movies with all these crazy ass timelines and reversing and flippity flooping and all that stuff with reality. But the reality of the situation is this, folks: you can't go back in time, you can't change things. When you make mistakes, they're there forever. And the only way to make things better is to live differently moving forward. And at the end of the day, that's basically it, right? We get distracted by these surface level debates: money, politics, labels, identity, sexuality, gender, all these things that just let people fucking believe and be who the fuck they want to be, and ignoring these deeper issues. Are we actually helping people, or just defending positions that we have. Because once we go deep enough, the truth, it gets much more uncomfortable. And uncomfortable truth requires change. Look, we've been talking for about an hour now. We're getting to the real deep things. The people who have already left have left. Those that are in it for the long haul, that are really trying to get down to the nitty gritty of what it means to live a better life. We're here. We're talking about it. It's going to get deep because now we're talking about the ego. We're talking about the spirit. We're talking about the spiritual level because not all arrogance is necessarily what we're talking about, but identity, who we think we are. Growth requires admitting something very difficult. Ready for it? I've been wrong. Oh boy, here we go. I've been inconsistent. Yikes. I've been part of the problem. These are things that are not easy to say, but are things that must be said by quite a few. I've said these things in a number of areas in my life, my beliefs, my identity. It has changed over time. And these are some of the big questions, some of the big statements that in the major life in the major transformation of life moments, these questions are some of the biggest ones to admit, well, not questions, statements. And this is hard, right? Because we protect ourselves, we protect our image, we protect our past decisions. How often do we try to rationalize and justify things we've done in the past instead of just being like, yeah, I was wrong. I fucked up. I thought that this was right. Turns out I was wrong. And a lot of times these things are not as harmful as we thought they were, but sometimes just acknowledging a situation and admitting you were wrong can change the world of things. Because a lot of people aren't going to go for the dagger. Like if you say, oh, hey, I'm sorry, I fucked up, I'm wrong, I'm at your mercy, a lot of people will have a little bit of grace and not shove a dagger down your throat, right? A lot of people are just looking to be heard, just looking to find a compromise. I would venture to say that most people are looking to find compromise as opposed to finding confrontation. More people would rather compromise than have a violent confrontation or have a just any type of ridiculous confrontation in general. And that doesn't make you a wimp or wussy or pussy or a bitch or whatever fucking ridiculous masculine phrase that men have to say to attack other men that don't act like they're alpha dogs. Like, get the fuck out of here. That is the hard part, of course. It's harder to do that than it is to be there. I'm an alpha dog. Alpha dog. Lone wolf. Come on, get the fuck out of here. That's ego preservation and it shows up everywhere. People preach values they don't live by. Institutions claim morals that they do not uphold. Individuals demand change. "Ah, I need that change," while resisting it in their own lives. Not because they're evil, because it's uncomfortable to confront yourself honestly. There's a reason recovery programs emphasize honesty because without it, nothing changes. And if there's one thing that you want in recovery, it's a little bit of change, right? It's why all the addicts, you see them everywhere. They're going, "Oh, I want some change. I want some change." I'm like, "Yeah, I know you do. Fucking get out there and be honest, and you'll find a little bit of it." I mean, you don't grow by wanting it. You can't go out there and want some change. You got to go out there and make a little change, right? You grow by being willing to see yourself clearly, even when it hurts. Yikes. We've reached a hard truth. But the best part about this is that that was segment 4, and we are now in the last segment. And yeah, it's a doozy because this is where it all comes together. We do a lot of bitching here on Devil Dog Addiction. We love to bitch. We love to complain about things. We love to say, oh, this is terrible, that's terrible. But after the bitching is done, this is where the action has got to start, right? Would you stay in a system, personal or societal, that you didn't know or that was not working just because it's familiar? Would you start being honest, not perfectly, not all at once, but enough to stop protecting what's broken and start building something better? Because at the end of the day, folks, we don't just live inside these systems, we reinforce them. We can affect these systems but only if we're willing to enact change and not just want it. It's got to start with us, folks. And if we stop defending what's broken and start choosing differently, what does real change actually look like in our daily lives? Well, that's a question for segment 5 to answer. And the question is this: now what? Now what? Well, my friends, this is where we get into an Easter collaboration. It's time for a resurrection right now. We spent this whole episode doing the hard part that a lot of people avoid, right? We have looked at the gap between what we know and what we do. One second, I have to reset this fucking camera. Come on, camera. How rude. Like I said, it's time for segment 5, the resurrection now. We spent the whole episode doing the hard part that people love to avoid. We've looked at the gap between what we know and what we do. Everybody loves to talk about turning thought to action, thinking about, oh, I'm going to do it and then doing it. But people don't like to talk about how we get there or what issues are going on when we can't quite do it. We've talked about patterns, excuses, avoidance, ego, and the way people can become so used to broken ways of living that they begin to defend them. We have looked at how habits are formed, how overwhelm builds, and how even when we know something is not helping us, we can still find ways to protect it because it feels familiar, of course. But there comes a point where talking stops being progress, right? You have to talk. You got to talk, and you got to plan, and you got to talk, and you got to talk, and you got to talk. A lot of times, you got to talk quite longer than the action itself. That's right. Semper Fi, my friends. Semper Fi. And there comes a point when understanding this problem, naming the problem, and even describing the problem in a deep and honest way can still become one more layer of delay. You can talk and talk and talk things to death, friends, especially if it never turns into a moment of action. And this, of course, is where the last segment comes in. It's a good place for it because it's where we go from talking and thinking about things to truly doing them. And this is the part where we decide whether any of this is going to become real in our lives. It goes from just talking about this stuff to actually doing it. This segment is about action, not about cheap action, not about dollar store action, not about fake hype, not about bullshit rah rah rahs. It's about the kind of action that grows out of purpose. We find our why, we do our do. It is about what it means to stop waiting for your life to change and begin participating in that change right now. Stop thinking about it and start joining in on it. If you can't figure out a change to start, then find a change that's already started and put your effort into that while you grow your networking and grow your ability to do something on your own. And while we got to stop waiting for your life to change and participate in that bad boy, because while you're still here, you may not be here tomorrow. You may not be here a day from now, right? But you got to be here while your life is still touchable. You got to do it while you still can. There's if you can do things, if you can get off up your ass and walk around and talk to people, then you are still available to do these things. And even if nowadays with technology, even if you can't walk and talk and do all that stuff, you can still communicate it and create community with people because of technology. But while your relationships are still alive, our habits can still be interrupted, and while your time has not yet run out. We're reading this next reading from John 11:25. I am the resurrection of life. He who believes in me will live even though they die. Now, look, that is a very, very, very Christian Jesus verse, right? He's talking about the resurrection. So you got to believe in me and, have everlasting life. This is a verse that people pin their immortal souls on. Many people, many millions, bajillions in history of the world have lived and died believing in this, right? I venture to say that it's time to think about the resurrection not happening after you die. Now, of course, yeah, if you believe that, then yeah, that's the way you believe that there. But I'm saying that the resurrection is there, the believing in the truth, believing in Jesus and all that is there. So you specifically can live a better life now. And so you can live a better life of purpose now and make an impact in the world now. Say now, just one more time for good measure, because the resurrection is not only a future promise. It's not just a future promise. It's also the beginning of a new way to live while you're still alive. And that's the whole beauty of the Christian religion. Or I don't like to call it religion often because Christian discipleship, if you want to call it that, if you're just coming straight out of the Bible verse and just reading the Gospels, Matthew, Luke, and John, just that, and not using some of the older, the new verses that have um, different psychological meanings or social, psychological, physiological, whatever implications or interpretations. This verse, of course, is often heard only through the lens of eternity. I've heard many preachers preach specifically on this verse, preaching of the fact that, oh, you can trust in this verse and now you can do whatever the fuck you want and then you can die and go to heaven, right? Basically, just making it nothing about right now. And I think that loses some of the gravity of it by releasing people from their mortal coil to just think about the great things that are going to happen after they die. So that means, okay, well, what about now? What do we do now? What are we doing here? We risk missing all that it means for this moment. Resurrection is not just about where we're going to go later, it's about what kind of life we're willing to step into right now. But what does this mean for us? Well, it means we don't have to treat this life like a waiting room. We don't have to treat this life like we're going to go somewhere next. We don't have to spend our days drifting, numbing ourselves, hiding inside comfort, or surrounding ourselves with people who already look like us and confirm whatever we already believe. We can begin rebuilding our lives now, reaching out to something bigger than ourselves. Our purpose, our relationships, new relationships, building relationships, networking, community, and building a bigger sense of purpose and our sense of responsibility while we're still here to do something about them. People love to complain about things. People love to complain about the way things are, bitch about things left and right. But they don't want to get involved. They don't want to put a little money behind their words, put a little action behind their talk, a little walk behind their talk. So let's get into our last three keywords of the night: application, turning belief into concrete action. Well, we have to find a way to turn something we believe we want, our dues, our hopes, and dreams, into doing something right now. Agency, recognizing that your choices still matter. You got to take some agency in yourself, friends. You got to remember that what you do, it matters. Everything that you do matters. It may not seem like it. You may be told in society that it does not matter, but it does, because the relationship between you and the universe, you and your creator, whatever the fuck you want to call it, is yours. And it means something. And it's real. And we have to realize that, or else we risk not finding our true purpose and meaning in this, however often or however many days you have on this little crazy rock flying through the universe that we call Earth. Stewardship, treating your time, your life, your time, and influence as things that you're responsible for. You got to be responsible for the world around you. Be responsible for yourself. Be responsible for the decisions that you make. You don't just fly through life, just getting all willy nilly. People tell you what to do, and you just go with it. Come on. You don't want to be doing that. It's time for change to become real as it touches your day, my friends, because the physical level, our body, change only becomes real when it starts showing up in your actual day, right? It's one thing to admire discipline, to talk about purpose, or get all excited about becoming a different kind of person. It's another thing entirely to get up and live in a way that reflects these desires. It's not easy. It's very difficult. We can want to be doing these things right now. I'd be like, oh, I want to get up tomorrow and do this, this, and this. And then when tomorrow comes, we feel the motivation is gone, or it's been sapped from us, or we've been, I don't know, we just feel sick or something like that. Uh, There's a lot of people lose the direction in this thread. We stay in the emotional intellectual relationship with change. We don't we never bring it down to this practical structure of our lives. Change is always just an idea in the future, like, oh, I'm really into change, so we got to change this or change that. But we don't really come down to this idea that we really want new results, but we're still living in old routines. There it is right there, friends. We got to change that routine. And that's why this cannot remain abstract. If the resurrection means anything in the life that we're living now, it has to affect how we carry our bodies through the day. How do we use our time? How do we care for our health? And what do these repeated actions that we choose when no one's clapping for us, when no one's saying, oh, you should do this or you should do that? Real action does not always look glamorous. In fact, it usually doesn't, right? It doesn't look glamorous at all. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed when you would rather stay stuck in your head. Sometimes it looks like cleaning a room that has been reflecting your mental chaos for too long. You got to physically clean up your life if you want your spiritual and emotional part to get better. My friends, there is a reason this matters so much. In 2024, only 47.2% of US adults met the federal guideline for aerobic physical activity. And Mikey B, where's your husband today? Unfortunately, I am not married. So hope you have a great evening. And maybe if you know someone, you can hook me up. Mine, your mind, it has to be able to work, my friends. You can't build a better life on unstable feelings. Unstable feelings, they probably happen when you come across someone doing a show about positivity and doing better, and you try to make some sort of witty joke about sexuality. Ha! Good one, my friends. You're basic and you're stupid and you're moron and you're a fool. So either way, you can keep adding to the point that I'm trying to make by showing your ass like that. It's pretty spectacular. You got to keep waiting for the right feeling to arrive before we act. People are too busy attacking and not acting. They think motivation is supposed to lead and structure is supposed to follow. But my friends, if you want to have that, you got to do the exact opposite. Structure is what carries you when your emotions are unreliable. A lot of us, when we're getting out of drug addiction, when we're drinking all the time or doing drugs all the time, or we're fresh, new in addiction or in and out of addiction, get 30 days there, 60 days there, 30 days there, a week here, 2 weeks there. Your emotions are all over the place. So finding some sort of structure to carry you through really, really helps. Some mornings you wake up clear, some mornings you wake up heavy. And if your whole life is built around whether or not you feel ready, yeah, we said it. Do you feel ready to do this, ready to do that? Well, then your progress, well, it will always remain fragile. And yeah, I said fragile, fragile, it's Italian. That's why so many people live inside cycles instead of intensity. And what happens? They collapse. They get fired up. They do too much too fast and they burn themselves out. And then they fall back into discouragement because they mistake unsustainability or unsustainable intensity for growth. Just because you do something really good or really hardcore for a few seconds doesn't mean that you've grown or that you've succeeded in your task. The real growth is steadier than that. It's less exciting in the moment, but more powerful over time and less negatively affected by the winds of change or the winds of the whims of whimsy, if you will. It looks like deciding what kind of person you are trying to become and then building small forms of order that keep carrying you back in that direction. Because very often we go one way and then we have to find ourselves back to true north. We go another way and we got to shift our way back to true north. We lose our way and we got to shift our way back. The data points in that direction too, friends. The American Psychological Association reported in 2024 Work in America survey that 67% of workers experienced at least one outcome associated with burnout, such as low energy, lack of interest, or feeling of isolation. That means a huge number of people are not failing because they are incapable, just like we said earlier. It's not a knowledge problem. It's not a whatever problem. And that's right, my friends. It's a 6, 7% of the situation problem. So when we talk about discipline, we have to talk about the structure. What's my G? Kitty cat. I don't know if you can see Smudge. He was dreaming. Like I said, the answer is not to scream at yourself harder. You don't just yell and get angry about it and get more, oh, you need to do this harder. You got to do this harder. We got to talk about discipline. We have to talk about structure with it. The answer is not that. The answer is to stop negotiating with every single passing feeling. Stop giving hedons or giving power to every little nonsensical, dumbass thing that comes across your way every single day. Every time that you have some stupid thought, every time that someone tries to input a negative comment into your life, anytime someone tries to bring you down or attack you because they feel bad about themselves. Remember, people are damaged folks, man. Whoever the fuck people are going through, if people are so upset with themselves that they have to attack somebody else, well, then that's not going to work, my friends. And when you start screaming at yourself, or stop screaming at yourself, you stop screaming at other people. It works both ways too. If you can work on one, the other one will work. And if the body and the mind go one way, the spirit follows. And the resurrection has to mean something here too. And your spirit, spiritually, of course, this is where the reading of this verse matters a lot. It refuses to let faith become escapism. Yes, of course, eternal life matters. If that's your view of the Christian faith, that you're doing this, you're living a life on earth in order to reap your rewards later, then heaven matters to you. But what comes after this life does matter, but not as much, if not so, than what's going on right now. Because if all that belief leaves that present life untouched, all this belief of life after heavenly goods or Christian greatness is promised to you afterwards, and it doesn't change how you live your life today, then it's means nothing at all. If the resurrection does not give you a sense of a reason to live differently, then it's become an all too distant shape for our actual conduct. And this is where our purpose becomes concrete, folks. The life touched by by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, right, should become more alive, more engaged with the world around it, more wanting to be involved in a world that you think is damaged, involved in a world that you think is broken, involved in a world that you think is damaged beyond change, right? That's where you should be, in there, in the thick of things, in the heat of the moment, talking with people, asking questions, trying to convince and show people that love is much better than hate. And the proof is in the pudding, folks, as they say. And you can take that to the bank. But so much of that kind of hate falls apart in the moment, the very moment it's inspected closely, because it was never rooted in encounter in humility. If you hate something, my friends, especially if it's a person or identity or something about somebody or about someone, you need to engage that. Or if you think, especially if you're a Christian, you think that someone is a sinner or a, evil or bad, you got to talk to some of these people that you think are a certain way and try to figure this out a little deeper. That's, of course, this segment cannot end with a private spirituality that only feels good inside our own circles. It only feels good inside our own groups of people. It only feels good when we're around our own, right? When you go out to other groups, when you go out to other places around the world, you start to be like, oh, wait a minute, there's pushback against the way I feel. I don't like this. Oh, people are challenging my beliefs or saying, wait a minute, what I feel is real isn't good. 70% of US adults describe themselves as spiritual in some way. Yet another Pew finding shows that 34% of people feel a deep connection with humanity at least once a week, while another 30% feel at least several times a year or monthly. So the hunger, my friends, for meaning and connection is there. Regardless of what people tell you, regardless of what you've heard, regardless of what the news, the media, what people around you, people in your neighborhood, your family, what's said around the dinner table, People want connection. They are open to something better. And the question is whether we're going to turn that spiritual language into stewardship, compassion, and purpose while we still have breath in our lungs and people in front of us to help. Well, now what, my friends? The talk has become intangible. It's time to analyze, time to use some analysis to grow. This whole episode has done its job, of course, then it should leave you with less appetite for endless complaining and a greater willingness to move. Not because movement solves everything instantly, but because movement breaks the lie that you are powerless in this present moment. Because you are not powerless in this present moment, it means you can pick one thing and you can do it. You stop waiting for the perfect master plan and you choose one act of application. Clean that one space that's been wearing on your mind. Figure out what is that one little thing that's wearing you down, and then you can make that change. Make that phone call that you've been putting off. Write that page, fill out a form, send a message, take the walk, cook the decent meal, ask over for a conversation and interaction, apologize to one person, or help one human being who cannot do anything for you in return. Because if you help someone else when the purpose is not to help you back, it will benefit everybody. And the point, of course, is stop letting your life remain theoretical. And that's about it, my friends. That's probably the main idea of this whole thing is that you can't let your life be theoretical. You got to go out and you got to live it. And you have to go out and live it. And when you're done living a little bit of it, come on back here and tell me all about it. And in the meantime, I'm going to hope you guys have a blessed day, a blessed, wonderful evening, weekend, next week, April, May, June, July, August, September, all the way to Christmas and next year. See you guys later. Hope you guys have a great night.